What's up guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. Today's video is going to be giving you an update as well as some DIY on the 93 Calypso Coupe that's sitting here behind me. And I think this video is somewhat a little bit overdue because I've had the car for well over a year now, and a lot of you guys have been asking me what's going on, and as it lurks in the background, it's undergone a couple changes since I've received it. When I first got it, this was a running and driving car. As you can see now, there's no more power plant, and it's got a little bit of an interesting wheel and tire setup because it's still 5-bolt in the rear and now it's 4-bolt in the front. So in this episode, I'm gonna give you guys the whole rundown on what the deal is with this car and the future plans for it before I start getting my hands dirty and diving into this thing, because yes, it's gonna get built. So hang in there, stay tuned, and you'll get the whole rundown what's happening with this Calypso. So in case you're not familiar with the story of this car, an individual reached out to me that actually came from one of my OG foxbody communities back up in the greater Toronto area. It's like one of those acquaintances that you've known for years due to online forums, which was then called the GTAAMC.com, and you knew people by their usernames, probably saved them in your cell phone based on what their username was or the color or year of the car that they drive. In fact, I think I have him saved as 93 Calypso because, well, you don't come across very many of them. So long story short, he owned the car, he was building it up, he wanted it to be a road course car. So he wasn't trying to go in a straight line, he wanted to be able to take corners, he wanted to be able to brake, wanted the car to perform, hence installing a Cobra IRS in the rear. He actually did everything to this car on the underside, from a suspension, brake, and even paint. Like, the underside of this car is actually nicer than the top side. The last thing that he had left to do with this car was really just body and paint. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what's the deal? Why's the drivetrain out of the car? Well, I stole it. I punked it out because I'm going to use it in my 86 4i. The drivetrain's kind of sitting down here on the ground. You can see the Tremec T56 transmission down here. There's a built 306 with a trick flow heads cam setup. Actually, it might not be cam. Might be a letter cam in there. But trick flow heads, it's got a Phytech top end kit, which wasn't originally the case. When he first built the car, it actually, I think it had GT40 tubulars, and he had a Vortec on it. But for some reason, he didn't like the tune, or maybe it was heat soak. I can't remember 100%. So he decided to keep it all motor, went with the Phytech, and then he left Toronto. He actually got a job transfer down to Florida, I believe, down in the Miami area. And he works for Bacardi, which is a pretty damn cool job to have. Although I don't know how sober I'd stay. But aside from that, he kind of lost interest. The car went down to Florida, but he never finished it. He reached out to me, said, hey, are you interested in this? I said, absolutely. And apparently he reached out to Caleb at the Foxcast and he passed it up or didn't want it. But to me, phenomenal deal. And really happy with the car. Black interior car. Needless to say, this as a base is extremely desirable to somebody. So this car has a lot going for it just because of its pedigree. And we've talked about this before, like the 93 Reef, even the 86 4i here has got a certain pedigree about it. But the reality is we're talking about a notchback. We're talking about 93, so last year of the Fox. We're talking about Calypso, although it came out in 91. To find a Calypso on black and being a 93, an original 5.0 5-speed car, the numbers on this would be pretty low. And for anybody who is a Calypso fan, in terms of the color, it's for them, not for me. I can't say I'm a fan of this, I'm not a fan of Reef. I think the emerald green would be the only variant of a green that I really like. If I had to go in a brighter green, it'd be the 93 Cobra teal green, because I think that's sort of like a mix of Calypso and Reef together. So long story short, had the car. I was originally just going to put it back to stock because I'm like, who wouldn't want a nice, clean, tidy, stockish 93 Calypso on black? But then I started getting bombarded with emails and inquiries and everything else. The car is spoken for and as a roller, and it's going to now get sent off to paint. So the same individual that did the twin turbo Coyote notch, a Red Dog's custom paint, he's going to be taking care of this one for the customer. So a lot of you guys always ask me, well, do you work on other people's stuff? Well, in this case, yes, because I like to find nice cars. I like to work with people that can kind of see my vision or see my tastes and everything else, and I can help accommodate and bring that to life. Now, the powertrain, not 100% sure. I can tell you that the IRS is staying in it. I can tell you that he definitely wants to make some really good power. I've been trying to kind of push him towards a Godzilla swap. I think he wants a little bit more of an old school setup in here, but we'll find out what's going on. So the name of the game today, getting into actually getting some work done and not just me talking, is getting this thing stripped down and ready for paint. So this car is going to be treated like a color change, even though the color doesn't really even need to be changed. In fact, the bay is in really good shape. The only bad part about the bay is the fact that I've slapped the factory K-member out of the silver GT parts car out there because I kept all the Maximum Motorsport stuff ahead of time, and this was sort of kind of the state of the car as I knew I was going to go back to a back to stock type ordeal. Well, now things change. So the K-member is ultimately probably going to get swapped out again, and now we just got to peel everything off. So the emblems, the mirrors, all the trim, the quarter glass, the lights, and getting to underside of the hood here. Although this is all done pretty much, with the exception of that K-member, he wants to shave out the engine bay. I'm going to try and talk him out of it to a certain degree, but we'll see how it goes. Probably not Scott Rod panels. I'm really hoping not the Scott Rod panels. Guys, I know it can look really nice, and I know they're popular. Things can look really clean with your wire tucks and all that. I'm not a fan. The metal's so flimsy. It's covering stuff. It can ultimately create places, and this one's clean. We're not going to be hiding any rust by doing it, but I rather just weld up the holes, if anything, and just make things, keep it looking natural, but cleaner without as much Swiss cheese, especially being a 93. Being a 93, that means that this engine bay has the most holes in it out of all of the years. If you look at a 79 engine bay, you're going to see a lot less holes underneath here because over the years they changed, the battery used to be there, then they switched it over here, and then from carbureted to fuel injection, and then you got sensors on the back part of the firewall that got mounted, and things just moved around, and they had to drill new holes for new locations of things, even like airbag sensors that are kind of hiding underneath here. Rad support looked a lot cleaner back in the day. And that's just to kind of give you guys an idea. A lot of you guys already know this stuff, but if you didn't, now you know. So be taking out the underhood liner, all of these things, getting this in a really good position where welding and everything else can happen in the bay. That booster is going to have to come out of there. I'm going to wait until the car gets to where it needs to go before I disconnect all the braking stuff. But everything else will come out for now. And like I said, the lights and the trim and everything else. All right, guys, so a couple key tools. We'll get your engine bay stripped apart real quick. Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver. Got a panel popper to get all these guys off for the hood liner. Something magnetic to hold all of your hardware that you take out. And then some sockets. So 3/8, 10 mil, 5/16, 9/32. Those are all the sockets that you're pretty much gonna need to get most of everything unbolted out of the bay. Guys, this is the most underrated piece in your Fox's engine bay. If you guys have your car freshly painted or your engine bay is in really nice shape but it's missing this, please just buy a new one. It makes things look so much nicer and it keeps the water and leaves and shit from getting up in your bay. Pretty much got the whole engine bay done as much as I'm gonna get it until it is at the paint shop. At that point, we'll pull that brake booster out and we'll try and get those brake lines out of the way. The caster camber plates will become unbolted so we can make sure that we get paint and coverage in all the places that we need. So everything on the back side of the headlight panel here, all the wiring, headlight harness, the airbag sensors, all that stuff has been disconnected. This car already had a wire tuck, so things were kind of already wrapped up in there. So that's all disconnected. I'll tuck that back all in there. And I kind of had an advantage, right? The motor was already out. There was already a wire tuck that was done previously. So I was a little bit ahead of the game. But all of the things, for the most part, hood latches, under hood, sound insulation, wiper motors off, all that stuff. So pretty much there. Now moving on to the trim around the windshield and the back. So if you guys aren't aware, there's a really easy way to get it off without bending it and buckling it. And if you guys get a little pick tool like this, all you have to do when you see this guy here, you can lift up on the underside of the trim, and all you need to do is bend that out a little bit like that. As soon as you do that, it's going to release the trim and you can pull right up on it. So I'll try and show you on this guy and down along that side. All right, guys, there is a special tool for this, but honestly, the pick method works great. As you can see, I got no problems. Just getting the pick down in there, and it literally pops right up. Now these guys, if you pull straight up and you're careful, same thing. There's a little piece in there. You just got to be careful you don't nick the windshield with your pick. There you go. Got that out without hurting the clips. Got one. Last one right here. There we are. All the trim off, no buckles, no bends, no divots, we're good. These clips aren't even held on. All right, guys, these are actually super easy. People don't even realize how easy it is to get these off. There's just a way you need to slide them. You just need to find out which way to slide them off their pivot point, and that's it. People usually try and break them off. You can see right here how it's just a little groove that slides in there. It's as easy as that. Trunk open. Take these guys out. Ford emblem, you can see someone glued that on. Not very well. Yeah, look at that. Popped right off. This guy will have to drill the rivet out, pop out that lock cylinder. This is all gonna get shaved. I don't think this stuff is gonna end up going back on. Use the panel popper on the rubber. There you go. Pick that guy up. All right, guys, I know I've made a lot of people nervous, at least when they're watching me in person and I'm ripping stuff apart really fast and throwing everything into a box. I've done a lot of these cars. I know which bolts and nuts and hardware go in which location. I can tell just by looking at it. So if you're not that familiar, label them. Bag and tag, do whatever you got to do. To me, as long as they're all in one spot, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean everything. That's going to be the next step of this, is going through, cleaning up the harness, cleaning up the hardware, buying replacement parts for stuff that needs to be replaced, like those little taillight lenses. And that way we'll have everything nice and new and ready for when this thing comes back from paint. So the taillights is pretty straightforward. Getting the weather strip off, I'm going to leave the weather strip on just so that during transport things aren't bouncing and rattling around. Door handles are going to come off. We got some more trim to pull off. So for instance, we can do this real quick. I'll show you how this is done. There we go. Looks like this. And at that point, you can maneuver your lock cylinder out. It's easier with the door panel off, but you can do it just like that. You might lose your rod, but there you have it, guys. That is out. These are actually riveted on, so those will probably have to get drilled out. And we can take this trim off. And slide back. Usually don't have to slide too far. There's usually a sweet spot based on these tabs. So now that's off. So I'm gonna have to take the door panels off because I'm gonna have to disconnect the wire for the power mirrors. So the insides of the doors will probably get sprayed and prettied up anyways. In case any of my friends from below the border, well, the Canadian border, run into one of these, you can use a Phillips in there if you have the right size Phillips. It'll get those weird Canadian Robertson screw heads out. See these on Canadian cars, guys? Always rust underneath here, so these will be getting replaced. So that's going to be trash on both sides. Those will not be reused. So you can see here how the door is mostly apart now. Exposes everything that we need to make sure that we can get the door frames painted up properly, make sure we can get color everywhere that we need. You can see the old paint job here that somebody didn't mask off the door handle properly. All right, I was just taking the tail lights out, nothing crazy. I got the nastiest, and I mean nastiest, like this is, I don't even know what to explain, was used on the backs of those, and I think someone tried to seal them up, you know, so that water wouldn't get through. Like, I think I'm gonna throw those out, to be honest with you. Like, look at this. And what they were doing was trying to seal these holes here. I don't know if that's like aftermarket goo or what, but oh my God. I've never seen this before, so whatever that is, it's not a butyl tape, it's something else, and it is just awful. All right, so I'm at 1 hour and a quarter. Hour and 15 minutes. I got pretty much everything out of the bay. Again, I know I had a little bit of a head start. However, that harness, everything else is out, padding, etc. We got all the major trim around the windshield, rear window, around the doors off, pulled the window channel runs out, the door panels are off the car. I pulled the door sill plates off. Taillights are out. So the only thing that needs to come out really is the weather strip and the rear quarter windows. And I'm not going to do the rear quarter windows in this video. One, because I'm hungry. Number two, it is Sunday. I don't want to work necessarily a full 7 days a week. And number three, you guys have seen it on the Coupe video. So if you guys need to know how to take out your quarter glass or put them back in, make sure you check out those videos. Be careful for those Daniel Carpenter blems. Be very careful. If you guys haven't seen what happened to Kona Stang and his on his way to Mustang Week, then check out his Instagram page and you'll see for yourselves. So a little bit more, you know, the rear plastics are going to come out just so that I can have access to get the rear quarter glass out. And there's really not much to this interior. I took the Corbeaus out of this. That was something else that I took because they went into the Cali Coupe. In case you guys didn't know, I don't think I shared this with you guys. Cali Coupe's got a nice little custom tweak here. What do you guys think about that? If anybody's interested in some custom mats like this, I got them done on Etsy. Super nice, and you know what? It looks great with the courtesy lights. And I know the 90 and up guys aren't gonna have those, but you can wire up some courtesy lights if you want and have some pretty pimp floor mats. If I remember to, I'll put the link in the description in the video. The lady was super cool to deal with off Etsy. You know, they're not $100 floor mats. Well, they are $100 floor mats with the embroidery, but they're not $100 plus embroidery. They're a decent mat and they fit real nice in your Fox. You can get front and rears done if you want. So again, I'll try and remember to put that info in the description. And this car actually has rear seat delete. He had it that way because again, he wanted to make it like a track car. So not 100% sure which direction the customer is going to want to go in terms of seats. We know the rest of the interior will be black. Everything else is in really good shape in there. The door panels, the dash, the console, even the steering wheel. The only thing that's not in nice shape, we need one door sill plate, so we'll probably just replace both of them. And we need some speaker grills for the door panels because they got a little messed up over the years. And somebody tried to do the old, I'm gonna put screws through everything to try and hold them on trick. And that's about it. In terms of, this is one thing that I want to make sure that you guys are aware of and why it's important that if you send your Fox out for paint, that you get somebody that understands Fox bodies. So that way they take off all the right bits. They know how to take them off properly, like pulling off the trim and not messing that up, or you know how to make sure what the window channel runs, and just to make sure that steps don't get skipped or things potentially get broken and that paint gets put into the right areas. And then the reassembly is important as well. About the Canadian cars, guys, or the northern cars, you notice this texture down here? Factory rocker guard texture paint that is painted below the moldings on the LXs. And you can see there's a little bit of corrosion here, nothing crazy, most likely from stone chips cracking this. And I personally feel like this did no favors. I don't think this protected from corrosion in any way, shape, or form. I think Ford had good intentions, but ultimately it really didn't do anything in the end. So the other thing about this car, because there's a couple of ends missing, I expressed this in some of the earlier videos of this car, it had a Fender Bender at some point. And the indication of that is, number one, the VIN sticker is missing off this fender. Number two, we can see a little bit of the residual damage. So much like the Cali Coupe car, if we look in here, well, not only can we see a little bit of Bondo, if we look close in here, you can see there's a little bit of filler in here. We notice there's a little bit of a wrinkle here. So this is all going to get fixed up, and probably while the bay is getting shaved, you know, they'll give us an opportunity to straighten that out, clean all this up, and make it look nice and pretty. That's pretty much a wrap in terms of peeling stuff off your Fox body to get it ready for paint. And it'll continue to go and get stripped down once the car's there. Front nose cone off, fenders off, doors off, fender extensions off. The door moldings, let me see how nice these door moldings are here. I think I would like to see some cleanup in here. So yeah, you know what? These moldings might end up coming off. I was gonna say, if they're 100% mint, I believe in leaving them on. But in this case, I think they need to come off. Just because I think they might have been changed at some point, or at least there's buildup there from a previous paint job that didn't prep and do that properly. All right, guys, so that's a wrap. Hopefully you enjoyed the little update on the 93 Calypso. There's gonna be a lot more to come on this. and I'll be sure to try and walk you guys through a lot of the paint prep and process progress as all of that is unfolding, much like I did with the twin turbo car, and show you guys firsthand, especially with the engine bay shaving stuff. We're going to see how that approach will be done once we confirm it with the customer and see to what extent he wants to go. But other than that, I think you guys have a pretty good idea. So until next time, we'll see you here on the Infamous Project.